Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Dive Master.
And yes, that is me. I am Greg the Dive Master from Scuba Radio. Check it out every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern time on a Saturday. However, today we got our special podcast of Level Up, the podcast for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. The man behind the madness, of course, Willie Klein. Willie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for doing this great show, and thank you for all of our wonderful contributors for popping by for this little fun hour.
Well, despite the fact that I'm participating, we'll try to make it as great as we can. You have that kind of what is that? A bogey or no? What in golf? What do you say? Like you need a handicap. There you go. Despite that, we'll do the best we can.
I just wonder how Neil got the ocean to stop perfectly in a beautiful wave right behind him.
That's right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, or if you're watching the video podcast on YouTube right now as archived there, you can see Neil is hanging out on a beach in Bimini. Life doesn't get much better than that, does it, Neil? Or what do you think?
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of Bimini, we got something to talk about in just a few minutes. But before we get into our most recent issue, which is the January issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, by the way, a shout out to Christian Demetris from Rio, Brazil, for this stunning shark cover shot that I believe was shot in the Bahamas, Neil. I'm pretty sure, during the Bahamas Underwater Photo Week, actually.
Love it. Yeah, that looks nice.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we have that on the cover, but we got a special video to share with everyone today. If you haven't seen this.
Special surprise, yes.
Yeah. Now, this is kind of gives the backstory of the dive god, Neil Watson, who is...
Whoa, no.
Wait.
He didn't know this was happening, by the way.
That's right. This is a little surprise maybe for him, but this is a nice little 3-minute video that if you're not familiar with what Neil has accomplished in his diving career, well, this is going to give you a crash course. Are we ready for this, Willie? What do you think?
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
Okay, let's give this a go. This is something we've never really done on the Level Up podcast before, so it could go horribly wrong or be something that everyone's going to be quite enthralled with. I think it'll be a hit, but let's give it a go. Here we go. All right.
Neil Watson grew up around the water and began diving in 1953. He's been a pioneer in dive resort operation throughout the Bahamas and Caribbean for almost 50 years. Neil started his first dive operation in Freeport, Bahamas in 1965 and later moved to the Bahama island of Bimini, where he began Bimini Divers. Neil helped to pioneer many of the diving programs and safe diving techniques still utilized in today's recreational diving industry. In 1985, he moved to Fort Lauderdale, forming Neil Watson's Undersea Adventures, a chain of diving operations located in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Known affectionately throughout the scuba community as the Dive God, Neil's underwater achievements are legendary. He holds several world records, including the compressed air diving depth record, where he descended to 437 feet off Bimini. Another milestone of swimming 66 miles underwater, nonstop without surfacing, landed him a spot on the television show To Tell the Truth. Neil has worked to promote diving and keep it fun for all. He's never shied away from exploring new adventures, no matter where they took him. Neil has been a stunt coordinator for the movie and TV industry and has appeared in countless publications for his world records and his shark diving exploits. He has worked with numerous celebrities and even taught the Duchess of York to dive for an ABC special on hand-feeding sharks. Over his varied career as an entrepreneur, Neil has generously given back to the industry, serving as president of the Bahamas Diving Association for 15 years, plus a board member for DEMA and the Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce. Neil Watson's endless dedication and his boundless passion for the sport continually remind the world that scuba diving truly is and adventure.
How about that? That's pretty cool. You know, I saw a lot of cool people in that video as well as Neil.
Thank you very much. That's you had me scared there for a minute.
Well, that first 30 seconds of you in the Speedo might have scared a few other people too there.
And speaking of Speedo, if you want to see Neil in a Speedo again.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So, should we tell him about the cruise?
Yes.
Greg?
That's right. You want to be exposed to what Neil is showing as his backdrop on the video today in Bimini? Well, we're going to be on a Virgin Voyage cruise April 30th through May 3rd, I believe. And it's going to be a 4-nighter out of Miami. The dive guide's going to be on board. I'm going to be on board. But don't let that keep you from going.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
But book it. And, this is going to be like a throwback to the drip parties of days gone by that Neil used to run along with all the other crazy stuff that he did. That touched on in that video. But the drip party was Dive Retailers Industry Party that we used to do in the Bahamas back in the day to basically, bring everybody together, kind of like at a DEMA show, but you don't have to work at all. So you just get your
DEMA without booths.
Yes,
and
without booths, no work,
and in the bar,
just play,
and in the water
with your dive industry friends. So we're kind of recreating that. On the deck of the Virgin Voyage, what is it? Resilient Lady is the new Virgin boat we're going to be on that week, right?
So 4-night, 2 days. We're 2 days of diving. We're going to have Key West and Bimini, of course. And if you've never done Bimini, oh my gosh, you are in for it's the best, truly, of the Bahamas diving. They're really
we get to Bimini. We get to Bimini what April, May the 3rd, I think, or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Hammerhead season technically is over at the end of April. I'm gonna try to get them to hang around for a few more days, so
all right,
so we can pull off a hammerhead dive.
Yeah,
I've never done that dive either.
Well, I'll tell you, we just had Neil on Scuba Radio this past Saturday, and you were saying what they had like 8 or 9 great hammerhead sharks show up.
Yeah, we're getting 8 to 10 hammerheads, and we've got a resident tiger shark that comes in on the dive, so you get kind of 2 for 1. Wow. And it's 20 feet of water, white sand bottom.
Yeah.
It's
diving bucket list
for the money shot
type of stuff.
If Greg can get the money shot, anybody can get the money shot, and he got one.
If you have to dive more than 15 minutes to get your money shot, then you're just not pointing your camera in the right direction.
So you're saying my underwater Polaroid would work just fine even for that dive.
I mean, because it's up close and personal. They're right there, and the sharks are, right there in your face, cruising over. Like you're on the, hanging out at the runway in St. Martin and seeing the planes fly over. It's the same kind of thing, except it's a great hammerhead shark that might be 12, 13, 14 foot.
Yeah,
it's very similar.
If you want to go, email Neil. It's neil@neilwatson.com. As simple as that. He's the travel agent. He'll take care of the whole thing. So with that, I think we need to move on to our business at hand, Greg.
Yes.
Neil.
I think it's time for Britain, isn't it?
It is. Britain, I hear you have a little bit of news you would like to chat with us about.
Yes, William. Thank you, Greg, as well. It's so awesome to get to see everyone again. I've got some really exciting news about our sales team is growing a bit, and I'm super excited to welcome our newest team member, Gavin. Gavin Young is going to be our advertising sales rep for Southeast Asia, helping our dive operators grow their businesses through strategic advertising as far as our magazine goes. Gavin and I, though, we go way back. We've been friends since childhood, dove together in Hawaii when we were kids. And it's just so cool to get to see his journey from being certified at 13 in Oahu to now making a name for himself and making a whole career in the dive industry. So, Gavin, welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about what excites you about the role.
Hey, Britton, it's good to hear from you, man. I appreciate you guys throwing me in the mix today. Super excited about this new position. Just a little bit about myself and how I ended up here. Typically, I am a land-based adventure guide, so whitewater rafting, and most recently, I made the switch from whitewater to summiting, so taking people up to about 14,000 feet or above on mountains, high alpine environments. I am looking for my next bit of adrenaline, though, and my next thing, and I thought I'd go back to where something that you and me used to do when we were a bit younger. I think it's been almost 10 years now since we had our first dive together, and head back into the underwater realm of things. I'm super excited to get back underneath. I spent this past year traveling. I hit 23 countries, I believe, and 35 U.S. states. Out of all of that, I just fell in love with Southeast Asia, and I thought, why not mix the two of those together? And I found this perfect opportunity with you guys, and here we are.
Totally, man. Yeah, I mean, you've got a really extensive travel book. 33 countries, 35 states. I mean, that's got to have come with rather really strong global perspective, just like on tourism and that sort of thing. So, I mean,
It's been a great time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you have a specific approach when it comes to working with dive businesses, or you kind of just flying by the tail, taking going where the wind takes you?
So my first step right now is just going to be to re-involve myself and re-immerse myself in the community. I have found several fantastic 5-star PADI options in Koh Tao, which was my favorite island of all of Southeast Asia. It's in southern Thailand. And I'm going to be getting there here within the week, actually, after I come and see you guys there in Texas. And I'm currently at advanced. I'll be going all the way through to my IDC course there. I think I have 90 days booked. So first step of finding out how to benefit this community is learning how to be a part of it for me.
That's awesome. So that's so awesome. So I can tell you're really, really about, making those relationships and, just kind of helping them maximize their potential, which is super rad. But I'm so stoked to have you aboard, man. We will really look forward to hearing more from you as far as your island trip goes. But Gavin, I got to ask, our last dive was probably in Hawaii. Where are we going next?
It was I believe it was Electric Beach in Oahu, which had that real fun rip current out underneath where that water would shoot out from the plant. It was great. The next dive will probably be in Koh Tao, as I pursue the sales team and helping the group in our Southeast Asia department. We'll probably be meeting you out there in Thailand. And since I'm spending the 90 days there, I'll probably be focusing on getting involved in the community and meeting with local dive shops there. And before I even start selling anything to anybody, I'd like to just ask people of what they need and what kind of advertisement could do for them. But definitely after the 90 days and getting that IDC completed, God willing, that I'll be moving forward into getting the magazine the exposure to people who might not have even known about it yet. If anyone is watching this, I do have an official employee email now. I've been onboarded. That is Gavin, Gavin, at ScubaDivingIndustry.com. So again, that's Gavin, Gavin, at ScubaDivingIndustry.com.
So the cool thing about what Gavin's doing, thank you, Britton, great job, is that first of all, these photos I put up just to completely embarrass him. Actually, it came from his mom.
Yeah, I don't think they go back long enough. From what I see.
No.
These were not approved by me. They were not,
or me.
Right. So the cool thing, which I'm just springing on Gavin right now, but I'm going to have him write a series articles on what it's like to be certified in a resort environment like that as an instructor, to go from where he's at right now, because he's already a professional in the industry, but to go really to become an instructor. So we're going to have some cool editorials going to come from the result of the next few months of working together. So welcome aboard. And Greg, with that, I think we probably better move on to our first speaker.
That's right.
That happens to come all the way from the middle of the Atlantic.
That it would be Catherine Castle Garcia, one of my
Hey
favorites.
guys.
Probably my favorite, but I don't want to offend everybody
Aw.
else.
How you
How you doing,
Greg?
Catherine? What's been going on with you?
I just finally made it home to the Azores after 4 months on the road, including a trip to the DEMA show. So it's good to be home. And I've got a stack of story ideas for future issues of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, from trips to DEMA, to the Philippines, to Mexico, and then some trips in the States. So got lots of material to work on.
All right. Well, let's focus on what's in the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Page 20 is Catherine's latest article, A Different Kind of Blue, the social media app Blue Sky. So what is the app, or how does it work, and why is it needed? What can you tell us?
The irony of this conversation today, Facebook is 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, Facebook has grown up and can buy a beer. And Facebook might also be moving out of favor because change is coming. If you remember, like MySpace, Friendster, they're all gone. There are a lot of social media upstarts that didn't last a 20-year span, and that now Facebook is 21, and people are starting to look at other options. And that's what this article is in the issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. It's a new social media platform called Blue Sky, and it operates on a decentralized social network protocol. And in tech terms, that means a whole lot of opportunity for anyone who wants to go online. It's called the Atmosphere Protocol. You can go to appproto.com and actually build your own apps that can interact with Blue Sky. So that might be, it's above my tech level, but it's very cool to see this kind of interactive social media coming along. It's also got, I'll just run you through a couple quick features. Like right now, if you have a huge following on one of the other social platforms and you leave that platform, you don't leave with anything. All your photos, your followers, all of your history is gone. You don't get to migrate that anywhere. And with Blue Sky, anything that you create on that app is yours. It follows you throughout time, anywhere you might like to go. And that's going to be something that we're going to want to watch. Those of us that are doing a lot of advertising and a lot of activity on social media, it's important when you've invested that kind of time that you actually be able to own your content. And Blue Sky will allow you to do that.
Love it.
Very
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that. I haven't jumped on it yet, but I've been flirting with the idea. And if nothing else, you need to be aware what's out there, the latest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a little bit
Exactly.
ahead of the curve sometimes when these things pop up like this, because that could be a big social media thing here. So thanks for
And the
keeping
other
us
thing that,
updated.
well, I want to just add one more thing
Mhm.
on customization, because let's say, Britton, I saw your cat walk by. What if your cat wants to only have a Blue Sky presence with cat videos? Your cat can go on to Blue Sky and control the algorithm and have cat video after cat video all day long. So the user gets to control their algorithm. You get to decide what's on and what's not on your platform. And the last big cool thing is you can also use your website as your handle. So that's going to add brand recognition to your business brand, and it's going to help you be more credible. And for those of you that are the retailers out here and business owners paying attention, check out Blue Sky because it's got a lot to offer. And I'm not saying you have to ditch any other social media platforms, but Blue Sky is one to watch. So hop on board and see what you can make of it.
There you go. All right, Catherine, great
Wow.
stuff as
Very
always.
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's
Thank you.
trying
What time's it there in the Azores?
It's almost past my bedtime.
Is
It's
it?
coming
Oh my
up on
gosh.
8:30 p.m.
Oh,
So,
sheesh. It's wine.
yeah,
It's wine o'clock.
and I have a super early morning, so I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Well,
Thank
there
you,
go.
Catherine.
love you guys. See you.
Thank you so
See you
much.
soon.
Bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that good stuff as always. Time for to go from the Azores to down under, I believe. Is that right, Willie, with Terry?
That is 100% correct.
Yeah. So Terry Cummins from Australia, page 26 in the latest issue, the 6 major characteristics of a successful company. So the question is, of course, are you willing to share the big 6 with us right now, Terry?
Yeah.
And by the way, happy birthday.
Yes.
Oh,
happy
yeah.
birthday,
Thank you
Terry.
very much.
I don't know if we're
Thank
allowed
you.
to, we were supposed to say that, but I did it anyway, Terry.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a birthday in 2 countries because Australia's at least a year ahead over here.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
really
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this topic. It's one that's really passionate for me anyway, because when you look at these successful companies across the globe, they're really about 6 major characteristics that actually, come out and hit you in the eyeballs. And the first one, and none of these are in order, because one of the cool things about looking at these 6 is that they're all interrelated, and how a successful company works is integrating them together. And so the first one I want to talk about is leadership, which is kind of a no-brainer. Obviously, a successful company has to have good talent at the top, clear directions, and fair about the decision making, etc. So I kind of fleshed that out a little bit. But the most important thing I think in that part of the message is that good leaders build teams, not staff. They see high performers as assets, and not in some cases where people think that their staff or their team are competitors to their future. So it's a really interesting concept there that I fleshed out. And then, of course, leadership is really closely related and linked to the corporate culture. And corporate culture is something that's been the subject of a lot of research. And it's funny that a lot of people think people are happy within their corporate culture if they're getting good salaries and all the rest of it. But corporate culture is not just about salaries and wages and work conditions. It's about how the company actually looks at its ethics and standards, and how it operates and works with other people within the industry, especially other customers and the other industry participants, as I just said. They also grant their team members some freedom to make decisions, which is really, really important, because that gives them the chance to actually feel good about their job and feel like they're actually making a real contribution. I mean, it's really a bugbear with me when I hear people say, "I'll have to get back to you." You should be empowering your team so that they can actually make decisions that really makes your customers in real time. Yeah, and then that kind of relates to the next one, which is building that right talent. We know that a lot of HR departments will simply try to fill a gap. There's a missing salesperson or something like that. But the successful companies don't do that. They look at their key performance indicators and basically look at how the possible new hire, the new talent, will fill and meet those corporate goals. So that's all about the leadership and the rest of the culture within the team work with the new employees. A definite item, I think, that I want to try and bring up, Willie, in a future discussion raises a really interesting question for the dive industry: is an instructor traveling the world, living the dream? I think the big question that the industry's got to face, especially in resort areas, is the instructor that's passing through, living the dream, working from one resort to another, is your ideal employee? Or is it better to go for someone that's going to stick with your company and make your corporate culture attractive enough so that those people do want to stay? And so I think that's a discussion maybe we could have in the future, and
Yeah, I like that.
really make some contributions to the way that the team sort of put together, etc. But anyway, that was just a throwaway in there that I hope didn't distract you. But and then the next one is a strong market focus. Another bugbear for me, because a lot of the time I've seen dive shops and resorts lose a customer because it's all about what the owner of the company or the sales manager wants to sell, rather than what his customers are looking to buy. And a classic example is when you're looking at a dive trip. Are you going to go somewhere that you want to go or where your customers are going to go? And so that comes back to another point, aid of technology. Is a successful company using technology to identify their customers, what their goals, visions, etc. are, and how they put that into the mix when they're talking to their customers. So that's sort of the fifth one, the aid of technology. And we know that there's lots of customer relations management programs out there now that you can do. I don't talk about the internet in the article, but one thing I will say, and Jeff, you'll be interested in this one, is don't put all your marketing, successful companies do not put all their marketing dollars into online. I mean, radio is important, obviously, and other things. Like in my hometown, Cairns, even our local council has got diving images all over benches, signposts, etc., so that they brand the destination as somewhere where people want to go to the Great Barrier Reef. And then finally, the sixth one is strategy. And that's important too, because that's where the company walks the talk. They actually are, very focused on where they're going and they don't get distracted. And I think all of us have probably experienced from time to time that people within the industry, when they are distracted, it sometimes throws you off your game as well. And so it's important that successful companies stick to their goals. And it's not just about having, a strategic plan on a piece of paper or in your computer. It's sticking to what you really are trying to achieve. And then finally, it's kind of a seventh one is just tying it together, like I said at the beginning. And I think they're the sort of six major things that a successful company does.
Good stuff, Terry, as always.
It's like an MBA in a box right there.
That's right. So true. So true.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Keep those great articles coming.
All right. So next up, we're going to Dan Orr, I believe, right?
And we're going to a polar opposite climate.
Yes.
From northern Australia, Queensland to Driggs, Idaho, where would you say was minus 56 last week there?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago was minus 56 here. Yeah, we've got 3 feet of snow on the ground now.
Wow. Well, I mean this as a total compliment, but glad I'm not you. But Dan, page 7, situational awareness. Sounds like an airplane thing. Yeah, well, let's find out. So the question is, why is that important for dive instructors and their students?
Well, it's actually really important for everybody in everyday life because you really need to be aware of what's going on around you. But years ago, when I was teaching at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, one of the things I taught my staff was we really need to be very observant. So in fact, our mantra was prevent incidents so they don't become accidents. And we want to make sure that we're looking at things. In fact, that carried over to our students because it really is all of our responsibility to make sure if we see something, we say something or do something so that somebody does not get themselves in a bad situation that they can't deal with.
Nice. Obviously, we do a airplane show too called Just Plain Radio. So that's why I was making that connection. But yeah, situational awareness. That's important no matter what activity you're doing. Walking down the street for that matter. And
that's right.
Avoiding cars, right?
It takes being observant, and looking for things that could be potentially an issue.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
And in our industry, complacency is the most dangerous factor.
Right.
Because as a professional with thousands of dives, like most of everybody on this podcast, and probably even a lot of people listening to us, do you really go through the pre-dive buddy check with your buddy? Really? Yeah. Or do you just kind of like, I've done this 1,000 times,
right?
And that's usually how the beginning of an accident, as they say, they had everybody knows there's been a horrible accident in the United States this last week, but one of the investigators that came on one of the news stations says that rarely in his history of investigating accidents is there one cause.
Yeah,
there's multiple things that begin, like complacency, whatever it might be, situational awareness in the case, whatever it was. So
yeah,
you're absolutely right. Because a lot of times it's simply a little thing that really progresses into something much larger if you don't deal with it and take care of it.
So true. Well, leave it to Dan Orr to keep us straight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Great article.
Yeah, he does that all the time. I love it about him, despite the fact that he's half frozen right now. All right, moving on to Alex Brilski.
Across the country.
Yes. I don't know if we're starting to become, there's a theme developing with blue stuff going on. So page 29, he has an article about blue carbon. What is it and why should I care? Alex, fill us in. What can you tell us?
Absolutely. Lots of blue stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Last month, I talked about the advantage and the purpose of what are referred to as carbon calculators and made a case that blue carbon is the best option, but I didn't really explain what blue carbon was. So I'm going to give a little bit of background and then some historical perspective, just to kind of wrap our minds around these numbers and whatnot. And I'll start by saying that humans annually put 40 gigatons. Now, a gigaton is billion tons, billion with a B. Humans put 40 billion gigatons of carbon in the atmosphere every year. Now, what does that really mean? Well, let's look at it in a different context. A typical coal train carrying 100 cars carries about 10,000 metric tons of coal, one train. The amount of carbon we put into the atmosphere is equal to 4 million fully loaded coal trains. That would wrap around the Earth 100 times. So when people tell me, oh, humans can't alter the environment, nonsense. We have, in fact, done that. Now, if we want to do something about that, we need to take a look at how much can we pull back. And according to the IPCC, the International Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Control, we need to pull between 10 and 20 of that big gigatons out of the atmosphere. We currently are pulling 2. So we're pulling 5% of the CO2 out of the atmosphere in order to keep with the 1.5 degree increase that we're hoping to achieve. So what is blue carbon? Blue carbon refers to essentially 3 different ecosystems: seagrass beds, mangrove forests, and wetlands. So why are they so much better? Well, mangrove sediments, which is where a lot of the carbon is held, can hold that carbon up to 5,000 years. And likewise, even if the tree is destroyed, that sequestered carbon is still in the sediments. Unlike trees, where if you lose the leaves, they're not retaining really any in terms of sediment. The soil is not the sediment of the tree. Secondly, if we look at mangroves from another perspective, 1 hectare is about 2.5 acres, can store as much carbon as 3 to 5 hectares of tropical rainforest. 1 hectare basically is 3 to 5 times more effective. Seagrass beds hold 1.2% of all the carbon in the ocean, and essentially they really create an incredible reserve. And as I said before, the other advantage is these sediments are held, or that carbon is held in sediments, no matter what happens to the actual plant, which can recover, but still the carbon is held in check. Lastly, just to kind of give a perspective about just how carbon has changed. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, let's say the latter 18th century, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was about 208 parts per million. Okay. When I was born in 1952, it was 320. So about 40 parts per million. Today, it is 419 as of today when I checked the NASA site. And that is an extraordinary number. And what makes it even more extraordinary is half of all of the anthropogenic carbon put into the atmosphere has been so since the premiere of Seinfeld. Since the early 1980s, we have put half of the CO2 in the atmosphere. So these are mind-boggling figures, and I think we sometimes lose sight about, well, just how big is this problem, et cetera. And like I said, not only are we near and dear to these ecosystems as divers and ocean lovers, they make more sense, and hence that was the reason I really advocated for the Ocean Foundation in the article last month, because they only sponsor blue carbon initiatives that involve mangrove restoration, wetlands restoration, and seagrass restoration. So that's pretty much my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
And
That's
read the article to get into a bit more detail. More importantly, there's a resource list in the QR code that will give you about 12 different resources if you're interested in participating in programs or more background into some of the issues that I talked about.
Well, there you go.
So,
well, going blue is opposed to just going green. A little bonus,
Cool.
right?
What's fascinating about your article is that, we all know mangroves are super important for fish habitats,
Coastal
and that's
protection.
how it's the nurseries for a lot of the reefs. But who would have guessed? Because on what is this page?
29.
31, he has a
31.
carbon storage chart that shows that the mangroves have just a massive ability to store that blue carbon. So, I mean, who would have ever figured that it's just as essential as the nursery or the statuaries is the blue carbon side. So thanks for bringing this.
The only terrestrial example or commonality is permafrost. If all of a sudden the methane release from permafrost, which is worse than CO2, it's about 30 times more of a greenhouse gas. If that were to suddenly melt, we'd be in a mass extinction. And it's not in danger of all melting, but it is melting at a faster rate than is good. And of course, that's increasing the methane in the process. So
that's
don't get me started
caps.
on the smell.
That's the polar caps. Yeah. That's the polar caps you're saying. So there's the chart I was referring to.
Well,
so
not just the polar caps, but you get into permafrost, in northern Canada, certainly Alaska, et cetera, as well. So
wow,
it's not just the poles.
Well, there you go. Good stuff, as always, Alex.
You always just bring us such great news to our world.
Well,
but better to know than to be ignorant.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Exactly. He also brings our IQ up just like Terry does, and Dan, which I love.
Yes. So true.
Okay.
Well, I think our next guest, Jeff Cincirapino, from
Good
Connecticut.
job.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, he might educate us as well.
Jeff has been a retailer for many, many years. And he is writing some of the most insightful articles. If you're a dive shop out there, read every single article that, of course, everybody has read. But it's tactical advice. It's not saying, well, here's theory what you should do. He's saying, here's exactly what you could do. The mere fact we're on this podcast was inspired because one of his very first articles he wrote for you was how to start a podcast. And guess what? We followed the advice. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's great tactical information. So, Jeff, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yes.
Greg, it was introducing you and saying, watching your wallet, managing expenses, improving cash flow on page 31.
How do
so
we
I'm going to ask
that?
the question. Yeah. What are the 4 ways to improve cash flow, Jeff?
Okay, so we'll switch from blue to green, and green for
That's great.
We're going to do there. So this article was really I put this article together based on a presentation that I did at the DEMA show this year on watching your wallet. And it's all about how to improve your cash flow or limit your expenses, some practical ways. And I did a lot of case studies at the DEMA show with it. But I think one of the first ways is, we all like our Amazon Prime because we get the free shipping, right? We pay that money and we get the free shipping. Well, as a retailer, we do a lot of shipping, inbound shipping, outbound shipping, and we wanted to save some money on it. So a lot of the ways you can look at it is, first of all, is what are your distributors, your dealers giving you for free shipping? They usually have programs based on your dealer agreements. What's the levels? Be sure you're looking at that. And that requires you to really look at some inventory management as well, because you want to not be buying things that you don't need just to hit a free shipping level, because I always viewed inventory sometimes as a liability and not an asset on my books, because it doesn't mean anything until I sell it. So free shipping is a big one that you can focus on. But the second piece of that is you can set up your own shipping accounts. With UPS. DEMA has a program that we took advantage of, and we would have all of our vendors use our shipping account because they like to mark things up. But when they used our account, we were saving money on every shipment that was coming in. That being said, sometimes you have to bite the bullet and order things, and you're not going to get the free shipping. But also be careful about some of the things internationally. I thought I was being really smart one time to order some things from Canada and avoid the FedEx fees. Well, it cost me about 20% more to use my account and took a week longer to get in because it had to go through all the UPS customs pieces. So be careful about that. The second one that unless you're a banker, you don't like banking fees. They charge for the privilege of using your money. And, every time I would do a wire transfer, it was kind of like, wow, this is getting expensive. And the more you do those wire transfers, you're just eating into your expense. So avoid all those fees if you can. Banks' credit cards sometimes have the international transaction fees, so they could be 1.1 to 1.5%. That's just an added-on fee because you're doing something internationally. So be careful on that piece of it. And then finally, I looked at my bank had a 2-page, like 3-font list of all the fees that they would charge you, and you don't know what they all are. And sometimes you could be doing things and you get to the end and they want to charge you a fee. For example, I was going to transfer money from one bank to another. Well, if I moved the money out, they were going to charge me a fee. I could move money in all day, but I couldn't move it out. So you got to be careful about that. And then another one that was a big one is credit card processing fees. This has been getting a lot of attention periodically, from legislators and stuff like that. Why is it so expensive? What are you going to do? The bottom line on that is you need to negotiate that. You need to go in and call up your credit card processor and negotiate, and understand how long that program that you're in is for, because they have the notorious way of bringing that fee up, and unless you're tracking it, it's going to get out of control. Difference can be, I was able to negotiate it down from 1% from one fee to another, and it would save me about $300 per $100,000 of business. So
wow.
It's a good piece. And then the last one that I want to talk about that I put in the article is interest rates. My bank wanted to give me 0.03 interest on a savings account. Now, when we were taking a lot of money in for deposits for a trip, I would put that money aside because I have to pay for the trip, right? It's not my money to spend yet. Well, that could be 2-3 months as I'm collecting that money and putting it into an account and getting nothing for an interest rate. So I was able to go in, negotiate a better rate. The difference being between, in one example, one month I would get like $1.40 in interest. When I renegotiated, I was getting $60 in interest. So it's a big difference, and they just don't want to do it. So that may mean you have to move a bank. You may have to move to another bank because they have this thing that they talk about called new money. If you're bringing new money into the bank, they'll give you the best deals, which is like, okay, I can go across the street and get a better deal. Yeah, you can. And you just have to be prepared to do it and work a little bit. So there's a lot of ways you can improve your cash flow, manage your expenses, but you have to stay up on it. We're busy at the dive shop, right? We're busy. We got customers, we got courses, we got service, we got all this stuff going on, but you still have to take care of business.
So
So
true.
watch your wallet.
Watch your wallet and call your bank. I think I know what I got to do as soon as we're done here today. That hit a little too close to home. You hear what I'm saying?
Good advice.
Yes.
I hope there's no bankers on.
Good stuff, Jeff, as always.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for your articles.
All right, next up on page 18, part 2, how to blue your business in 2025 and make more green. It's Gil. And
so Gil,
what's blue with you?
The question. Yeah, what else is blue?
Oh, what else? Oh,
we got
crap.
close. We got close. So, no. Gil, what else is blue? How's that?
So what else is blue? But first, I'm going to talk a little more about green. Jeff,
I constantly get emails and letters from Chase, where I have no accounts, that say if I switch from Wells Fargo to Chase, I'm going to get $600 to $2,000 cash just for bringing it over my account. So remember that, folks. So anyway, what else is blue? When I wrote part 1 of this series in December, I came up with 6 things that could turn your business blue and make more green. In other words, make your business more sustainable and get you more clients where you can make more money. But then when I started writing part 2, I thought, where the hell am I going to find more than 6? But I found 11, and Willie gave me some tips on one of them. So one of them that I do all the time is eat sustainable seafood. There's an app from the Monterey Aquarium called Seafood Watch that's online and on my phone. And you can look on there when you go to a restaurant, you go to a grocery store and buy and eat sustainable seafood. You're not eating seafood that's been decimated from overfishing. So that's a good one. Another one is being aware of leading environmental issues, such as educating your scuba students, your employees about global and ocean warming, coral bleaching, microplastic pollution, and all that stuff. Third, my dive club has hosted annual debris cleanups and purple urchin cleanups, where not me, but other members of the club who like cold water will go in the ocean off the Sonoma coast, off Mendocino, and literally hammer the sea urchins and beat them to death, and then take it out and bring it to a place where they pulverize it and make fertilizer. Other things you can do is support ocean conservationists, teach your kids about the oceans from home. There's a nonprofit in San Francisco called the Hydros that has created 3D goggles that they're giving to students, and they hope to get 10 million students worldwide interested in the ocean from viewing it through these 3D virtual reality goggles. I think that's really, really cool. Another thing you can do to make your business more blue is to host a film from the International Ocean Film Festival. We had the founder at our dive club a few months ago because their annual film festival is coming up in April, and they showed us all the documentaries they're working on. But you can contact them and host a screening on Zoom and raise money for a good cause. And other things you could do is celebrating World Ocean Day on June 8th by going diving or doing something to celebrate it. Or like Alex said last month about using blue carbon calculators, I summarized that in this blue article. And then other things you could do are scheduling dive trips to eco-friendly dive sites around the world, and go bluer with Ocean First in Boulder. Willie told me about his friend Graham, who's created a powerful ecosystem of travel, swimming, diving, adventure, education, and conservation all under one roof. And number 11, I interviewed Jeff Cinceropino. That's the right way to pronounce it, right, Jeff? And he told me about his nonprofit in Connecticut that is paying students fees for getting certified and renting them gear at no cost. And some of them are becoming divers, and they're working in a shop, or going into marine biology. So those are the 11 things you could do in part 2 when you connect all the blue dots. And there's one more thing I want to add here. A friend of mine in advertising named Nancy left the ad agency world and used to write keynote speeches for a guy named Steve Jobs. That's right. He's Steve Jobs. And she coined the phrase, and there's one more thing, where at the end of a keynote, he would pull out an iPhone or an iPod or an iPad and say, one more thing. And so one more thing today is something I'm doing for the Republic of Palau through a friend in my dive club. She's an attorney, and she used to work there for Ernestine, who's the Attorney General. Recently, Ernestine contacted her and she said, I need to advertise that we have 4 job openings here in Palau, 2 for attorneys general and 2 for the head of our crime and criminal divisions. And my friend Lori said, why don't you contact Gil? He's well connected in the diving world. So I'm telling all you people, and Willie, if you share this link with them now.
Yeah, you bet we will.
Yeah, but there's 2 attorneys general, assistant attorney general jobs and 2 division chiefs, and they're offering between $50,000 and $100,000 per year. And that money goes a long way in Palau. You don't have to be a lawyer to apply for these, but I'm going to be publicizing it through all my connections, including this one. And I'm even running an ad in California Diving News. And could we show that link now, Willie, on screen?
Let me see if I can do that real.
Because I wrote an ad for California Diving News that will start they'll get it next week for the March issue that I think you'll get a kick out of.
Right. Is it a big, long URL, I assume? Or
it's a long URL, but there's.
I can't really display it on here, but what we'll do, Gil, is we'll have it underneath the bio, the information, the transcript, the notes, so people can click directly.
Anyway, there's a ad I wrote, and the headline is "Wanted 4 attorneys who like swimming with the sharks."
That's great.
And so that's it. That's one more. That's my one more thing. And thanks for listening. See you all later.
Thanks, Gil. And
yeah, I was going to show this marble that I got from Wallace Nichols, the guy who wrote Blue Mind.
Yeah.
Carry it in my pocket all the time to remind me how important the marine environment is.
Good. That's very cool. And I was going to do a segue. And part of the reason we're dedicating so much space editorially to this blue concept, between what Alex has been writing about, what Gil, you've been writing about, is that there is a serious business motivation behind this. And Alex was the one that actually turned me on to the nice folks in Colorado that they're doing with the Ocean First program. But there's a serious business side of making your business blue, because consumers are interested. They'll pay more if they know that they're dealing with an operator that is conscious, ecologically conscious, and socially conscious. So this is a serious side of the business. I mean, it's not just, gee, it'd be nice if we use paper cups. No. This has to do with, you're talking about building your business, and I've seen it firsthand all over the resorts world. And I know, Alex, this is something that's very near to your heart. And people like Cheryl up at Deep Blue are making it a huge, big part of their business. They're a wholesaler, and they really truly do have seen that if you can put those people together, the dots between the environment and your business, that you can be far more successful as a business. Wouldn't you agree, Alex?
Lots of that, yeah, and I can document that 6 ways to Sunday. One other point that Gil brought up, the Monterey Bay seafood charts, they're regionalized, and unfortunately, there's only one that really deals with tropical seafood, and that's Hawaii. I'm going to be doing an article on sustainable seafood for dive travelers. There is an NGO in Belize that published a really good seafood guide talking about what are appropriate choices if you're in a tropical Atlantic environment. And I'll be doing an article on that in a couple months.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Al.
So thank you again. Let's move on to our last, but definitely not least, and our newest writers that have joined our team, David Pritchard and Lily Mack, right here from about 5 miles from where I'm sitting. They're from Dallas. And I incorrectly said last month they're from Richardson, but they are from Dallas, which is even closer. So I'll let you intro them, Greg.
Yeah, page 13 in the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, Leading a Scuba Trip, Part 2. The trip leader's role. So what makes a good trip leader? I guess we'll go to, should we go to David first, maybe, or ladies first? All right, David, take it away.
Yeah, but basically being a good trip leader is you're being a trusted guide that your group can depend on, help them not only prepare for the trip, but also be the go-to person, keep them, on schedule and assist them if any issues arrive. A good trip leader also needs to be familiar and be able to communicate with the destination's management and key staff members before the trip.
Yep.
So that you're the face of the trip, and you're the key contact person, so that they know who to reach out to, and make sure that the trip is enjoyable. You also want to make sure that you pay attention to every member of your groups throughout the trip, so that nobody feels ignored, and that they feel cared for the entire time. So make sure they're happy customers throughout. Lily, you got a few things to add?
And part of that making your trips memorable is planning ahead. So it helps to know your customers and know what their likes are. Do they want to do more cultural? Do they want to do more sightseeing? Or are they just interested in relaxing around the pool? And so you can customize your trips based on what your customers' needs are. And that means working with the resorts and providing either optional tours or extra tours that are packaged into your package, and working it out that way so it becomes special and more customized to your clientele. And the other thing too is to ask the trip people whether they're celebrating a special birthday or anniversary, or whether it's going to be a milestone 100 dive celebration, and so you can notify your resort on that and plan a special recognition event around that. But when it comes back, but the other thing too is when the group does come back from their adventures, you want them feeling that it was like a trip of a lifetime, and to get that passion to want to go on future trips with you.
Love it. And by the way, Lily gets award for best backdrop today. No slight to Neil and Bimini or Terry on the Great Barrier Reef, but she has an anemone and she's flanked by two colorful clownfish. That's awesome. That's an awesome shot.
I love this series you guys are doing. I really do. I think it's so needed to tackle the business side of travel. And I'm going to ask Neil. He probably has dealt with more group trip leaders than than anybody definitely on this podcast. And I'm sure he could probably come up with a couple of quick tips that he's seen that really make.
Yeah.
A group leader can make the difference between a good trip or a bad trip, and nothing is more important to a resort operator than a good trip leader. The customer looks to the group leader to see if they're having a good time. Right. You see the group leader come up from a dive and they're excited and they're energetic and enthusiastic and everybody is ooh wow. Versus there's instances with group leaders that are not the case, and that can turn what should be a good trip into something that's less memorable. So, no, dive resorts pray when a group comes in that the group leader knows what they're doing and knows how to take care of their group.
And has a good attitude. It trickles down. It's contagious, right? The love you have for the environment and what you're showing everybody, on the trip. If you're excited about it, they're going to pick up on that. I think you don't have to sell it; you just have to share it. Yeah. And if you're into it, it's going to come right through. I love that.
And one of my pet peeves is having worked in the resort environment for many years is, we all know, because we've been in this industry for most of our lives, most everybody, that the coral reefs are not the same quality they might have been 30 or 40 years ago. But a person that just gets certified and goes on their first group trip to Cozumel doesn't know that. Or Bimini or Mexico, anywhere, and it always drove me crazy when you hear these instructors or dive guides on the back of the boat saying, yeah, you should have saw it 10 years ago. There are a lot of elk coral now. It's done. They don't know. I realize we need to protect it and we need to take care of it, but it's also an attitude, and that comes down to your group leader, definitely. Anybody else have any comments before we roll into our February issue and wrap up here for today, especially Gavin or Britton?
I think they're just
nothing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, stoked to be here.
I was really relating to the comments about how a trip leader can make the difference on how the people react to the trip, whether it was a good trip or a bad trip. If you're smiling, they'll look at you and think, oh, this is supposed to be a good time. I am having fun. Whereas I guess in more of a land base, if you say, oh, the river wasn't as high today, they're going to think, oh, I didn't have quite as good as time. And also they look towards you when they're out of their element or they're scared or they feel uncomfortable, they look at you, and if my guide's okay and my guide's confident in what he's doing, then I feel better and they can relax and enjoy their trip more as well.
Right, Gil, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a comment about that. One of the first trips I ever took was to Sea of Cortez with a local dive shop, and the leaders were a married couple who worked at the shop. She was an extreme extrovert, he was an extreme introvert. No one wanted to talk to him because he didn't talk to anyone anyway. But she was great, and he was, how was it dive? Oh, it was all right. So you've got to be an extrovert to be a group leader. You've got to be an extrovert to be on the show too.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. I'm really excited about our February issue. I know I say it every podcast, but Jeff is coming back with a great article on getting your dive shop ready for the season. So, Jeff, I'm looking forward to that article. Yep. Al Hornsby has not yet graced us on this podcast, but he's a great friend of Neil and I's and many of us here on the podcast. Al recently retired after almost 35 years, I think it was, with Patty as the Senior Vice President of Legal Affairs. Nobody more experienced in the legal realm globally than Alan. He actually lives in Singapore. He is writing a column every single month on the liability of our industry and doing a great job. We're looking forward to his next series. David and Lily, so needed this series in travel. I'm looking forward to your third installment. Pat Hammer has written a couple of articles for us, and you'll like this. Dan, he's writing on how to teach older divers, instructors, because he's finding 15, 16, 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds in his classes for IDCs, people that are going through and want to have another career. We have 2 cool travel projects planned, an underwater military museum in Jordan, and we have a dive instructor that's going to be writing about that in the Red Sea, hopefully on a regular basis for us. And then our buddy Carlos Lander didn't make it this issue, but the next issue he's writing about, and I love the stuff he's writing about. He's writing about stuff in the Southern Caribbean that we do not have on mainstream dive travel maps. Las Rocas is another island that most people never even heard of, but there's a lot of dive resorts, fantastic diving. So anyhow, he's going to continue that series on unknown dive spots, basically for group travel in the Caribbean. So Greg, anybody else have anything else you want to comment?
Well, we
Neil?
just got to throw out the Virgin Voyage cruise again.
Oh yeah,
April
don't
30th.
forget that.
Opportunity to hang with the dive god over a few days. Maybe
There you go.
Maybe
There
even
you
have
He's
a
going to bring us
cocktail.
Speedo. He's going to bring us Speedo. He already said.
Oh,
So
God
that's
help us.
Neil at neilwatson.com.
Promise that won't happen.
Okay. Well, Greg, let's wrap this up, and thank you again, everybody. It's been just a fantastic show. And Terry, thanks for staying up or getting up early, whichever's for you. And everybody, thank you for all your time.
There you go.
Thank you.
And
Thank
that'll
you.
wrap it up
Guys.
then for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, the Level Up podcast. Remember, check out Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5. But till next time, remember, it's always
better where
down,
it's
down
where it's
where
that's
it's
it.
Yeah, that's it.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Klein Group. For more info, go to ScubaDivingIndustry.com.